Today we watch a video about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. George Miller's overstuffed epic is not Fury Road, despite the origin story of Furiosa having some amazing sequences, though there are some amazing action sequences and two enormous antagonists. Anya Taylor-Joy's portrayal of the title Hellion as a heavy metal Condit galloping over the wasteland feels like an exaggerated franchise excess. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is unlike any other Mad Max movie. To start with, running for 2 hours and 28 minutes, the film is wildly, expansively, and phantasmagorically ambitious. Furiosa spans 15 years and chronicles the genesis narrative of Imperator Furiosa in 5 chapters, including The Pole of Inaccessibility, as contrast to Mad Max, Fury Road, which was set over 3 days. Thousands of depraved hooligan bikers with rusty weapons and decaying teeth make up the cast of the movie. It seems at times like they're preparing for Wasteland Woodstock. The second contention about Furiosa is that, despite a few great action scenes, the action isn't as prominent as it was in earlier Mad Max movies. This time around, George Miller appears to be more concerned in creating a universe than he is with leading a road warrior. The most crucial thing to note about Furiosa, though, is that despite its potential for darkly stunning moments and fervent support from a wide range of people, I believe it falls well short of being a Mad Max masterpiece. And here's the thing, if I said otherwise, I wouldn't be telling the truth about my desire for a Mad Max home run. George Miller immerses himself in the Mad Max mythology in Furiosa to such an extent that he both tops and competes with it while tearing it apart. I'm considering renaming the film Mad Miller, Beyond the Thunderdome. Many of us have a particular affinity for the Mad Max movies. They are the best thing ever, in our opinion. When I got infatuated with them in the early 1980s, I would see them repeatedly, always on a huge screen, and I would play a game of which Mad Max film is greater than the other, with myself. Was it Miller's 1979 drive-in motorcycle movie, Mad Max, which starred Mel Gibson in black leather as a family man who faces off against the toe cutter, a lunatic Hell's Angel who was written by Shakespeare and had a camera positioned at bumper level? Or was it Miller's 1982 follow-up, The Road Warrior, which transported the jaw-dropping, adrenaline-pumping, God-only pace of the first movie to a wasteland overrun by baroque psychopaths in the future? Most people would say The Road Warrior is greater. But Mad Max, in its cruder low-budget way, had a down-and-dirty B-movie virtuosity. The Road Warrior was bigger and grander. I decided, this was part of the fun of the game, that the greatest Mad Max film was whichever one you happened to be watching. That a few years later, Miller, perhaps high on his own legend, made Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, 1985, a threequel that had some splendid things in it, Tina Turner, the Thunderdome Showdown. But that also turned into an inflated Jungian fairy tale about saving the children. It wasn't a terrible film, yet the series felt cooked, spent, diminished. It seemed as if Mad Max and The Road Warrior were too bravura in their drive-by nihilism to keep extending. Miller had made the two greatest action films of all time, and he moved on to other things, but that, of course, wasn't the end of the story. In a world of recycled IP, Mad Max, Fury Road, 2015, released 30 years later, did the impossible. It revived the series at full intensity, sweeping memories of Beyond Thunderdome under its spectacular wreckage, and creating a heroine. Charlize Theron's hellacious buzzcut Furiosa, who was every bit as full-throttled commanding as Mel Gibson's Max. True to her name, the film was so fast and furious that your eyeballs had to learn how to watch it, to follow the ballistic micro-edits. But when you got onto the wavelength, the black magic of the Mad Max world was back. It was an epic desert drag race miracle, a sequel worthy of the first two films and, in that sense, maybe the third greatest action film ever made. Furiosa tells the story of how its title character grows up, how she goes from being an innocent village girl, raised in the green place of many mothers, to a kidnapped waif, to a resourceful orphan who passes herself off as a boy, to a devious hellion who bounces back and forth between dueling post-apocalyptic underworld empires, that of the warlord Dementus, Chris Hemsworth, the long-haired and bearded ruler of the biker horde that first absconds with her, and that of Immortan Joe, the ancient, gas-masked, white-maned cult leader of the Citadel, the colony of white-faced fighter disciples who Furiosa was trying to escape from in Fury Road. One of the many things to cherish about Fury Road is that, for all its crash-and-burn splendor and dizzying editing, it channeled the exploitation film DNA of the original Mad Max films. It was a vision of the future, but like those first two films, it found its meaning in action. That was its gritty glory. Furiosa, by contrast, is a picaresque with a stop-and-go rhythm, as the young Furiosa goes from the frying pan into the fire, like a heavy metal conduit, forming attachments through her survival instincts but never sticking with anyone for long. She's a lone wolf in a world of scoundrels. Theoretically, that's easy to understand, but a movie, almost by nature, needs to be about the forging of bonds, and Furiosa, as populated as it is with disposable warriors, feels alienated and a touch impersonal. The film seems more invested in Miller's elaborate and, at moments, overly digitized extensions of the wasteland than in the people who inhabit it. In that way, it's got touch of Marvelitis. The film seems all but designed to show off its world's end locations: the Citadel, the skull-faced cliff we already know well, and Gas Town, a petrochemical jungle surrounded by a giant moat, and the Bullet Farm. There's one spectacular action sequence. It's plunked into the center of the movie, and it involves a gleaming silver two-section tanker, with a jagged whirring reed-end doohickey, the entire thing built out of spare parts, as it speeds along the desert blacktop with rogue bikers attacking it from all sides. We've been here before, but it's sensationally gratifying to be here again, in the unholy thick of speed and murder, with warriors now dying by incineration, yet it's never a good sign, at least in a Mad Max movie, when your most dazzling set piece comes in the middle. Furiosa, like Beyond Thunderdome, wants to be something loftier than an action blowout, but the movie is naggingly episodic, and though it's got two indomitable villains, neither one quite becomes the delirious badass you want. When the young Furiosa, played by Alala Brown, is first captured, we think horrible things are going to happen to her. She is zoomed across the nighttime desert, where the gnarly biker who nabbed her plans to inform Dementis of the oasis she came from. But then Furiosa's mother shows up to rescue her, a ruthless warrior named Mary Jo Bassa who knows how to repair and ride a thunder bike and is willing to die to protect her cub. Dementis has lost his own family, and that's part of why he forms a sentimental attachment to Furiosa. She will be his family. But I'd be happier with this attempt to humanize a Mad Max villain if the character were allowed to be wilder. Chris Hemsworth still looks like a surfer god hero, and his Dementis never quite lives up to his name. He's not charismatically crazy, just madly imperious. He steals Furiosa's childhood, yet the Beyond Revenge face-off at the end still feels like much ado about not enough. Then too, there's something a bit off about how the movie comes close to cushioning the evil of Immortan Joe. This is a ruler who presides over a sick sect of suicide killers, and who extends his royal line by maintaining a harem of sex-slave wives. We know all this from Fury Road, of course, but since Immortan Joe's Citadel is the place Furiosa is destined to end up, the film goes a little easy on it. Immortan Joe and Dementis cut a deal over gasoline, and given how dastardly both of them are supposed to be, the battle between them should have been more lavishly twisted. The scenes where Furiosa passes herself off as a boy aren't quite convincing. You have to just go with them. Then she grows up, and Anya Taylor-Joy takes over the role. She's a powerful actor with a sensual scowl, but here, with hardly any words to speak, she's at her most stoic. That seems on some level appropriate, especially when she propels herself through an entire road chase underneath a vehicle. But the character is more reactive and less hellbent than either Gibson's Max or Theron's Furiosa. For a while, Taylor-Joy's Furiosa forms a connection with Praetorian Jack, a road warrior whose main lesson to her seems to be to wear blue grease paint on their foreheads. Their partnership comes out of nowhere, then fades into nowhere. More importantly, even if I adored Furiosa from Fury Road, do we really need to see her convoluted, in-depth origin tale that manages to remain on the surface? Fundamentally, it's a franchise cultural tendency, which may be why Furiosa, despite all of its delicious elements, is only a mediocre film. I believe many viewers and critics will react strongly to Miller's creation of a turbulent environment to explore. The Mad Max movies are brilliant, but part of their greatness lies in the fact that, even at their most intense, they have the spirit of a deadly jalopy speeding down a blacktop, even when they're as big as The Road Warrior and Fury Road. Miller attempts to make his cosmos seem bigger than it actually is by adding pretense to it and diluting its meaning. He loses focus on the area where the pavement meets the road.